Hey there guys, Noah here, and welcome back to another Vanguard discussion video. Today, I'll be covering over my wishlist for the upcoming ban list coming up in early July. Now, I'm kind of already pre-jumping the gun here, because I will start by saying that I was hoping that the ban list would come out right before Kingslayer, but obviously that was never going to be the case because there are some Springfests that are still going on, and as such, I think, it makes sense why they're releasing in July. That being said though, I will start by saying that this will cover all three formats, as recently I've been getting back into Standard, and I have an idea of stuff that kind of needs to get hit, and, I'm getting a better grasp of how the metagame is supposed to work out, so I'll have a little bit more input on the Standard format more so than usual. I'll still be covering V Premium and Premium, extensively, considering I play those formats way more often, but today it's going to be, I'm going to make the exception and actually discuss the Standard format because there are some things that I wish they kind of would hit. Anyway, let's get into it. Alright, so let's talk about the Standard format for a moment here, because I think out of this entire video, this is going to be the quickest section out of the bunch. Let me start by saying that I feel like that for the most part, based off my own personal experiences of late, that for the most part, the Standard format is relatively balanced. You have some of the set 5 stuff that's actually surprisingly doing well, despite the fact that a lot of the set 4 stuff has been relatively powerful in comparison. The only two decks I actually see currently talked about a lot from set 4 is Thegria and Overlord the End, and that's just simply because they can do some wonky restanding shenanigans enough to a point where it actually helps them in the long run. That being said though, the hits that they actually did get to Magnolia as well as Bastion were pretty justified. I'm going to assume that Dark Straight is more common in Japan, which is why they restricted it to 1, but I think the overall general consensus is Magnolia should not have Impulse. Like, it is way too consistent, it is way too powerful overall. Being able to generate that many attacks on your 4th turn and then draw a crap ton as a result, it's kind of nuts when you also have that Grade 2 promo that combos well to prevent certain matchups from absolutely blowing it back. I think that to bring down the power scaling of Magnolia enough to a point where the other decks can somewhat compete on its level is relatively fair, because the way how I see it currently in the English side is that Magnolia is on its own tier, and then you have a couple set 4 decks, and then you have some of the set 5 decks, and it goes down from there. But honestly, if Magnolia and Impulse do carry over, I think that they'll still be one of the best decks of the format, just simply because they can generate so much advantage, from their attacking. But I think they're going to have to be more cautious on what they call out at that point, and it will make things a little more balanced overall. That being said though, I'm not 100% sure what else they would realistically need to hit at the moment, but if some of the set 4 decks, and maybe even some of the set 3 decks, like the Meteor deck, they still are relatively good and better overall comparison to the set 6 stuff that's eventually going to come out later this year, then we should start taking a look at some of those cards and decks and see what we could actually hit. But until then, I think the format is fine. Moving on to V, can I just say it? Fuck Vert, fuck Rosa. Moving on. No, but in all seriousness, these cards need to go, because the biggest issue for a lot of players is the fact that they've been around for too long and they have been uncontested to be the best version of Bermuda Triangle. I myself hate the clan with a burning passion, but I also feel bad for those Bermuda Triangle players that have had to sit there and just play Vert for nearly 2 years. I think it's been nearly 2 years, don't quote me on that, but honestly, this card needs to go away. It's been around for too long, and, just get rid of both of them in V. I don't care. Let the new Prism Grade 3, I think it is, just come back and actually do something. Then that's fine. Who knows? Maybe Riviera or some other deck comes back out of the limelight. Who knows? Maybe even Melody. Fuck Melody. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Nubatama, because I want to jump the gun a bit into Premium, but let me start by saying that fuck Mizukaze. This card is absolutely broken. What was Bushiroad actually thinking when designing this card? Are they fucking high? Well, yeah, because this card can just combo and just go Unga Bunga on turn 3. Wanna know why I lost a large majority of my matches, and why a lot of people lost their matches in the Nubatama matchup? It's simply because of this fucking card. Not only does it guard restrict, but it guard restricts like a bitch. Now, I can understand for Crow that you want to get rid of this card for the same reason, that you don't want to mix this up with Jambia Congo or even the Shiranui package. That's fine, get rid of Crow, nobody cares. But then don't leave Mizukaze untouched, because that's the first card they'll go to. Not only because it's way more consistent overall, but the fact that it's so free, basically. You're just forcing your opponent to just get cooked at that point. Oh my god, I hate this card with a burning passion, but this card needs to go. And I'm gonna say it and preemptively go ahead and talk about it now. Fuck Mizukaze. Ban it in both formats. I'm done with this card. I think a lot of players, especially after BSF, and how many rulings that had to come up with this card. Fuck it. I'm done with this card. Moving on to Granblue. I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna keep saying it until they eventually do it. Choice Restrict Navigator and Skull Dragon. They combo off of each other too well, and I think in multi-attacking decks like Night Rose, they need to get hit. Up next, we've got Gold Paladin, and I think the overall general consensus is that Percival needs to be restricted in a similar vein to Sword Me in the early G format, restricting it to Liberator Grade 3 Vanguards that aren't the Heel Guardian. Now, this is probably one of the hottest takes ever, because most people would actually want this card banned outright in B, but I don't think it needs that restriction, and I think that it should be designed and used as intended to work with the Liberator engine. Do I think unrestricting it and put it to a 4 of is a good idea? Probably not. I don't think that 4 is the answer. Maybe 2 or 3, but definitely not 1 and definitely not 4. Especially now with Holy Shine right around the corner. I think that if you want to power down some of the decks like Gurgit and Spectral Duke, but still make them strong anyway, without them being entirely broken, and without having to ban Percival outright, this would be the way they have to do it. So yeah, let's jump into Premium at this point, because I think everything I've already covered in V, you know, pretty self-explanatory, right? So I think overall, yeah, this card, Mizukaze, just get rid of it, because I'm sorry for the tangent, but it quite honestly, the fact that it's had this much representation, this much consistency, and this much oppression in a deck that's already impressive, it needs to go. I don't like this card at all. I think it really screws over future Nubatama card design, because you know for a fact they're gonna run this as attack, because they could easily just splash it in. It's so splashable. No, get rid of this. And if you want to get rid of the Crow at the same time, the more the merrier at that point, to make Nubatama at least a little more fair. So then outside of Nubas, we have to mention the big 3. Let's start with Nightmare Dolls. So I think that overall, you need to do a huge choice restriction on all 3 cards, because you need to choice restrict Ginny, Leslie, and V Alice all at the same time. Because if you take out Ginny, they will still try to abuse Leslie. If you take out Leslie, they're going to abuse Ginny and Alice in some fashion with future card support, or cards that are already pre-existing in the V format. And I think overall, this needs to go, especially when considering that this has been proven to be one of the best combos in Premium history. I think that overall, it is way too consistent, way too powerful, and let's face it, Nightmare Dolls is still going to be an amazing deck even after this card combo is gone. But I think overall, the fact that Nightmare Dolls currently still have access to this is really fucking stupid. Get rid of it, so that way we never have to deal with it ever again. Let's talk about bugs for a minute, because let's be frankly, I hate the deck, but I also love the fact that it's actually doing well. For a clan that really hasn't had much representation and overall, you know, presence in a very long time, since the last time I can recall, since fucking Greydora in G. I think, honestly, if you're complaining about the Greydora stride at this point in time, you're a fucking idiot, because Ruination and Book Order are the problem here. It was never an issue with fucking all the other stuff that came out before it, but the fact that it could combo well now, gain +3 in hand, gain +10 to the front row, and then you still have access to striding on top of that, I think your priorities are kind of fucking whack if you think Greydora is the issue here. I hate the card. I hate that facing Megacolony. As a Luard main, I fucking hate it. But I feel like it needs to exist, because otherwise, decks like Luard and other decks that, you know, just would easily just go unga bunga if, you know, this kind of deck wasn't in existence, would be way more prevalent. To be honest, I'm actually kind of shocked this never came up before. You know, this, you know, incorporating, you know, the orders before. But I guess considering it wasn't as free before, maybe that might have something to do with it, but honestly, I think that choice restricting the Ruination with the book order is probably the best way to go about it. If later on they release future cards that combo way too well with Ghidorah, then maybe take a look at it, because sure, it's a powerful card, but I would say it's about as powerful as Morfessa as in terms of what it does for the deck overall. Hitting that condition enough to a point where it's very consistent and very powerful, the only reason why it's like this is because you could go +3 in hand advantage on turn 3 while simultaneously building up a board presence. And then on turn 4, assuming you don't get Persona Ride in conjunction, you still have a very good, reasonable lead at that point as in terms of overall advantage. But I think overall, the bottom line is they need to choice restrict book order and Ruination. Alright, so next up we got Narakami. I think that Stunverse needs to go to 1. I think that, especially with the most recent reveals, with the new cards coming out later on, I think Stunverse to 1 is the most fair way to go about it, because then at that point they have to commit to that one Stunverse turn, otherwise they can't use it. I think overall Narakami doesn't have a bad G-Zone outside of just Stunverse. You know, you got the Exterminate Dragon now, which is really fucking good, so that way if they try to play around Stunverse, you go into him, and that's perfectly fine by me. But I do think the fact that you have Stunverse still, and the way that it's actually working, especially with future card support, it will always be a problematic child in format. So I think it just needs to go to 1, and then I think it'll be fine. I don't think that banning it is the best course of action, because then you're forcing Narakami players to like completely redo their entire deck. Because right now they're comboing really hard, and just this is basically their Morfessa, right? They're setting this up consistently. They're forcing cards out of your hand. You know, they're messing you up. But I don't think that the deck needs to get hit super hard. I think light tap of the wrist, hit it to 1, and I think it's fine. Because sometimes that one turn is all they fucking need, quite honestly. And I think it's honestly any more than that, and it's really problematic. A card should not be able to rip 4 to 5 cards out of your hand in the late game. It really fucking shouldn't. Up next, we got Kagero. Now, as much as I like the idea that Eugene is roaming around now, I don't like the fact that this new grade 3, that it's not necessarily new, but people are currently using it now with the Eugene package because they can rip so many cards out of your opponent's hand. Not only that, but you could also do this effect more than once per turn if you actually set up properly. So I think in general, this card needs to go away and never return. So, Granblue. It's probably the last deck I'm going to cover in today's video, but we need to kill Navigator. Just ban it. I think that, especially in combination with the new Stride, it is way too strong. Especially since if you have multiple of him on board and you want to purposely just take a turn to set up an extra 10 cards into the drop zone, that's fucking insane. That is absolutely dumb. That's, you know, especially with that kind of card restrict, it's really hard to guard against, and then you still have access to Skull Dragon. No, this card needs to go. I'm sorry. I know Granblue mains are going to be very salty and mad, but when you look at the future format, I think, especially, we're going to see it in Kingslayer. Let's be honest. This deck is actually going to pop up here and there because, yes, it has 2 bad matchups. 3 if you count Link Joker. But, honestly, Navigator is the big issue here because it enables the new Stride way too often, and we're going to see a trend. And when that trend happens, I'm going to say I fucking told you so. So, that being said, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in today's video. I admit, I feel like outside of the stuff I discussed, each one of the formats feels fine at that point. I think once you take the problem childs out, obviously you're going to have new problem childs. They're going to be, you know, very consistent and more problematic over time. But that's just how card games work. That's how formats are supposed to work. You're never going to have a healthy, balanced format for very long. Eventually someone is going to come around and break a deck in half, and especially in Vanguard. So that being said, if I missed anything, let me know in the comments section and I will definitely respond to it. And until next time, this is Noah, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.